They killed the captain before he finished the map. And still, someone followed it. The brigantine Sea Wasp wasn't built for fame, but for silence. She left Port Royal in the spring of 1798 with no flag, no official name, and one mission: deliver a sealed crate to a buyer in Havana. Only 3 men knew what was inside. By the time the crew reached open water, 2 of them were dead. The first body was found below deck, slumped over the navigation desk, eyes open, tongue bitten through. A half-drawn map clenched in his fist, unfinished lines trailing toward the unmarked edge of the Caribbean. The second was found that night, hanging from the foremast. But no rope was missing from the ship. The men whispered of curses, of betrayal, of gold. But the first mate, Jonas Kells, only stared at the map and ordered sails eastward. The Sea Wasp changed course, chasing a line drawn in dying hands. For 7 days, the ship ran east into open sea. No other ships, no birds, no wind, just sun, and that map, and whatever it was leading them toward. Then they found the cove, exactly where no chart had ever marked it. The water turned black near the reef. The shoreline looked carved, not by nature but by tools. And high in the rocks, they saw it. A skeleton lashed to a crossbeam, holding a pistol in one hand and a rolled-up map in the other. The crew begged to leave, but Jonas laughed. "We're already dead, boys," he said. "Might as well see who drew it first." They lowered the longboat at dawn. 5 men went ashore. Only 1 returned. He couldn't speak. Not at first. When he did, it was just 1 sentence. It wasn't treasure. It was meant to be hidden. They burned the map, sailed west, and never spoke of it again. But they say the Sea Wasp vanished 6 weeks later, off the coast of Belize. No wreck, no sign, no crew. Except one thing. That same half-finished map was found in a bottle, washed ashore near Jamaica. Same hand, same ink, same unfinished line pointing east. They found the bottle 3 months later, half buried in the sand, cork still sealed. Inside, the same map the crew of the Sea Wasp had burned. Same curve, same ink, same last line, unfinished. The only difference was the name. In the corner, in trembling letters, was written, J. Kells. Finish what I failed. No one in Port Morant knew where it came from, but the bark Gray Serpent had just come in with half its cargo spoiled and a desperate captain. He was looking for any job, any cargo, any coin. He was also looking for something else. Maps. The captain's name was Robert Hale. Not a pirate, not officially. But he'd smuggled guns to the Windward Islands and once left a customs officer tied to a tree in Antigua. When someone handed him the map, he didn't blink, just traced the line, twice. Then he said one word, "We sail." There were 15 men on board. By day 3, 2 had jumped ship. One swore he saw something watching from the water each night. Another said the ink on the map moved when no one touched it. Captain Hale kept the map locked in a brass case, nailed to his cabin wall. He never slept. On the 10th night, they hit fog. Not the kind that rolls, the kind that waits. Lanterns wouldn't pierce it. The compass spun, and just before dawn, the lookout screamed, "Land." A jagged ridge of stone broke through the fog, exactly where the map ended. But there was no cove, no shore, only teeth-like cliffs and a narrow inlet that split the rock like a scar. They went in. Inside the cliffs, the wind died, the water went still, and the Gray Serpent floated into what looked like a massive sinkhole. Walls rose on every side, carved by hand. Markings older than any script in the Caribbean etched along the black stone. Then they saw them. Ropes. Hundreds of them. Tied to the rock. All of them cut. Some ends were fresh. The crew turned to Hale. He said nothing. Only pointed. At the center of the hollow sea was a platform. Stone. Just breaking the surface. And on it lay a chest. Sealed in iron. And bleeding. They didn't want to go. He ordered them. 5 men rowed out. 3 came back. 1 whispered, "It wasn't a chest." They turned back. But the inlet was gone. Rock now blocked their path. The fog thickened behind it. And from below, they began to hear it. Knocking. Soft at first. Then harder. As if something was trying to come up from the hull. The crew lost their minds one by one. They burned their sails. They threw the map overboard. 1 man jumped in after it. The water didn't splash. Hale was the last to speak. He wrote 1 line in the ship's log before going silent. The Sea Wasp never left. It only changed shape. 1 month later, a lifeboat washed ashore in Barbados. Empty, except for a brass case nailed shut. Inside a map. This time with a final line drawn. No signature. Only a mark. 2 letters. Scorched into the corner. J.K. It was 1803 when Lachlan Ward, a chartmaker's apprentice from St. Kitts, first heard the name Sea Wasp. He wasn't a sailor. Had never left land. But when a storm cracked open the cellar wall of an old naval office, a map tube fell from behind the bricks. Inside, parchment, stiff with salt, scarred with rot. A map, half-finished, a course that led to nowhere. And at the bottom corner, a symbol burned so deep it passed through the paper. J.K. Lachlan had seen that mark before. Once, when a retired Royal Navy officer came into his father's shop, asking if anyone sold Caribbean black ink that moved in the dark. No one laughed. They just sent him away. That night, Lachlan couldn't sleep. He traced the map, matched its lines to 5 charts. None of them showed the inlet. But one, just one, had a faded note in the margin. Gray Serpent, presumed lost. 1798. Coordinates, never confirmed. He didn't know why he cared. Didn't know why his hands shook. But when he checked the back of the map, he found something no one else had mentioned. A line of text, written in blood-brown ink. It's not treasure, it's memory. He stole a berth on a merchant brig headed east, named Starling's Wake. It was fast and unarmed. He wasn't looking for battle, just answers. The crew joked about his books, his maps, his silence, but none of them joked when the sea around them began to feel wrong. By day 7, the wind vanished, the sails hung limp, the sky dimmed. 1 sailor went blind overnight, another refused to eat, whispering, "It tastes like it's remembering me." Lachlan said nothing. He was focused on the map. The symbols were shifting. The line was finishing itself. Then the Starling's Wake stopped. Not anchored, not grounded, just stopped. The water didn't move. The ship didn't sway. Below, they heard it again. Knocking, like bones on wood. Like a sound echoing up from a place where light had never reached. That night, Lachlan found the captain dead in his quarters. No wound, no struggle, but the brass case, holding his navigational charts, was burned shut. When he pried it open, he didn't find the ship's maps. Only 1 page, the final version of the map, fully inked, signed, not with letters, but with a fingerprint scorched into the corner. He stood on deck, alone, holding the map in the lantern's glow. And then the fog parted. The cliffs, the inlet, the hollow sea. The place from the old tale was real. But the island, it was gone. Just the water, as black as ink, as still as a held breath. He dropped the map into the sea. It didn't sink, it floated, then it burned. And in the firelight he saw them, silhouettes, standing on the water, watching, dozens of them. Some wore Royal Navy coats, some wore nothing but bones. One had a brass case under his arm, and all of them had no eyes, just lines of ink running down their cheeks like tears. Lachlan never spoke again. He was found weeks later, drifting near the windwards. Ship intact. Food untouched. Not a single log entry after the night he lit the lantern. Only one thing was recovered from his person: a scrap of chart, and a new signature, written in black ink at the bottom corner. L.W. They burned Lachlan Ward's ship off the coast of Dominica. The Starling's wake was found drifting for weeks, empty, food untouched, logs erased. The locals didn't want it near their docks. They said the wood whispered. They said the hull still bled ink. So they towed it out to sea and set it alight. But some things don't burn. The map, soaked in salt and something darker, washed up 5 days later. This time, it had a new signature. DF. No one knew who that was. No one wanted to, except one man. Captain Elias Flint had seen death. He had been a privateer, a smuggler, and briefly a guest of the gallows before bribing his way down. He didn't believe in ghosts, but he believed in patterns. And this map had one. Every 56 months it appeared, always rewritten, always redrawn, but the same line, the same path, the same destination that never stayed put. Flint bought the map in silence. Didn't ask who had it. Didn't ask where it came from. He only said, "I'll follow it, but I won't finish it." He chose a crew of men with no family, no names, no history, and a boy, mute, who could draw better than any naval cartographer. He gave the boy a set of ink and a locked trunk. "You don't draw what you see," he told him. "You draw what the sea gives you." They left Bridgetown under no flag. The brig Osprey was fast, quiet, and black-hulled, painted to vanish at dusk. On the 6th night, the boy began to draw, not from the deck, not from stars, but from dreams. Each morning, a new piece of coastline appeared on parchment: cliffs, hollow water, marks not made by man. By day 10, the lines matched every other map before it. But this time, there was a name: Wakesmouth. No one had ever named the place, until now. It sat at the center of nothing, a ring of sea that had no current, no depth, no bottom. And this time, it had coordinates. Flint changed course. 3 days later, the water died. Wind vanished. The compass cracked. And the sea began to sink. Not violently, not loud, just a slow, pulling descent, as if the ocean itself was exhaling. The Osprey dropped into the ring. The sky turned gray, then yellow, then empty. They drifted for 2 days. No stars, no sound. Then the boy pointed, and there, out of the stillness, rose the stone platform. It had changed. No chest, no ropes, no bones, just a table. And on it, a single sheet of paper. Blank. Flint went alone. He walked across the water as if the ship no longer existed. He stood over the paper, then bled into it. From his eyes, from his ears, from the cracks in his fingers. He never screamed. He only said, "It's ready." The boy finished the map that night. No one told him what to draw. No one watched. He didn't use his own ink. He used the sea. And when it dried, the map had no line, no coast, no destination, only names, dozens of them, all burned into the page. And at the bottom, one more: EF. They left the map on the deck. The Osprey sank that night, in silence, without splash. Only the boy was found, days later, floating in a barrel. He never spoke, but he still drew, and every page, every time, it started with a line that no one remembered making, a line no one dared finish. They called him Barrel Jack, found drifting west of Tortuga in 1806, half conscious in a barrel, clutching soaked papers. He couldn't speak. But he drew. He was taken in by a retired British surgeon who had once served under Admiral Rodney. The man, Dr. Elijah Grain, taught him to write, to read, and eventually to talk. But the boy never stopped drawing. Not landscapes, not faces, just maps, endless maps, of coasts that didn't exist, of inlets that moved, of lines that wrote themselves while he slept. By the time he turned 17, Grain had locked all his drawings in a chest sealed with iron bands. He told no one, not even the boy. But he wrote one final line in his journal before he died. The sea has a memory, and it is using him to remember. In 1812, the boy disappeared. He left behind no note, no trace, just one page nailed to the inside of his room. A map, simple, elegant. It had no coordinates, no key, just a single black line, and 2 words at the top, going back. He booked passage on a merchant vessel under a false name, worked in the galley, never spoke. But the crew remembered his eyes, dark, hollow, always watching the waves like they were saying something only he understood. He began to draw again, not in private, on the walls, the floor, the sails, maps, everywhere. And then, as before, the wind died. They called it a dead calm, but the boy knew it wasn't dead. It was waiting. He climbed the mast, sat there for 2 days, didn't eat, didn't blink, and then he whispered something no one heard. That night, the water around the ship turned black. They saw it again. The hollow sea, the stone table. But this time, there were no ropes, no watchers, no knocking. Only the boy. He walked across the deck, dropped every map he had ever drawn into the sea. The water didn't ripple. Instead, it began to absorb the ink. Each drawing melted into the waves, like the sea was drinking its own memory. And then, on the table, the final map appeared. They saw it form from nothing, line by line, a map made not with ink, but with names, thousands of them, not just sailors, not just pirates, captains, surgeons, deckhands, and one, repeated 5 times, L. Ward. The boy looked back only once. He smiled, then stepped into the water. He didn't sink. He didn't float. He simply vanished. The crew returned, mad with silence. They couldn't recall their own names, but each of them had a tattoo they didn't remember getting. A single black line across their spine, like a path that hadn't yet ended. The boy didn't draw maps. He was the pen, and the sea was still writing. They called him Hale's ghost, though he was no ghost at all, just another man who followed the line. Only this time, it wasn't drawn on parchment. It was burned into his skin. He was found drifting near Trinidad in 1821, unconscious, covered in salt and scars. On his back, a perfect map, etched deep. Every inlet, every symbol, every cursed curve from a dozen vanished ships. Doctors tried to clean it. It wouldn't fade. The Navy tried to chart it. It led to nowhere. One scholar tried to recreate it by hand. He vanished a week later, and his ink bottle was found shattered, spilled into the sea. The stain wouldn't wash away. The man eventually woke, but he didn't remember his name, didn't remember the ship, didn't remember the sea. Only one word ever passed his lips. Drawn. He was locked in a naval hospital outside Kingston. No visitors, no records. But the staff noticed something. Each morning, his back had changed. The map grew, not outward, but deeper, as if something below his skin was finishing it. And then one day, it stopped. The final line had been drawn, and that night, he died. They buried him in an unmarked grave, burned the clothes, but the bed frame he died on, it wouldn't stop creaking, even when empty, even after the building was abandoned. 5 years later, in 1826, a merchant brig called Rook's Mercy went missing en route to the Yucatan. The cargo was routine, the crew seasoned. But the second mate left behind a letter, written the night before they vanished. There is no course, only repetition. The line returns, and this time I'll sign it myself. J.K. And that was the last one. No new maps have surfaced since. No ships have reported stone tables, hollow seas, or watchers in the fog. The world turned modern. Charts became precise. Sailors trusted instruments, not instinct. But deep in a drawer in the Admiralty's vaults, there remains a case no one will open. Sealed. Since 1827. The label is faded, but readable. Recovered chart. Final incline. Do not copy. Do not draw. And inside, they say the parchment is blank, but only in daylight. Because at sea, under the right moon, under the right fog, when no other ships are near, a line appears, and it always ends the same way, with your name